While the offseason is still young, most of the significant signings and trades have already happened. Sure, there's still some stars attached to trade rumors at the moment, but for this video, we'll just be going over the winners of the offseason so far. Keep in mind this list is in no particular order. First up, Paul George and the Sixers. After another disappointing season in LA, the Clippers weren't willing to match the money and length that PG-13 was looking for. The Sixers came into the offseason with one of the teams with the most money to spend, and they wasted no time in signing PG to a 4-year max worth $212 million. Paul George is an obvious winner here as he cashes in on potentially his last max as he enters his mid-30s. Now check this out, here's a list of all players at the age of 34. The next closest contract of a 34-year-old player is DeMar DeRozan's $73 million contract. PG is literally signing a contract worth 3 times the amount of what DeMar is currently getting. That's insane. I get it, PG is still an all-NBA talent that should seriously elevate the ceiling of the Sixers, but that is a crazy amount of money for an aging player with a lengthy injury history, especially during playoff time. But hey, this is all about off-season winners, and PG-13 is definitely a winner after securing that bag. While we're here, I'd like to add the Sixers are massive winners of the offseason too. They completely retooled their roster, as Embiid, Maxey, and Kelly Oubre Jr. are the only players from last year's roster that are returning this upcoming season in a Sixers uniform. And apart from Paul George, they added Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, and Andre Drummond to help round out a strong rotation for this season. Now let's talk OKC. OKC started the offseason with a bang when they traded Josh Giddey for Caruso. Sure, Giddey is young and still has plenty of upside with his size and natural playmaking, but Caruso gives them a win-now piece that will help keep the Thunder's spacing relevant with more lineups, as well as providing some of the best perimeter defense in the league. Giddey was one of the few players on the Thunder that messed with the Thunder's preferred 5-out attack, and that was apparent in the playoffs when teams were literally leaving him wide open behind the three-point line. Caruso is a career 38% three-point shooter, and he will fit in perfectly with the Thunder's lineup. On top of that, they got big man Isaiah Hartenstein to help shore up the front court. OKC's 5-out lineup was a huge reason why they finished as the number 1 seed in the West, but their lack of size hurt them at times. In the regular season, they were bottom 5 in both offensive and defensive rebounding, and their lack of size and true interior defense seriously hurt them in the playoffs. Chet is just way too fragile to bang down low as a true 5, and Hartenstein immediately fixes that problem as a monster rebounder and a true paint protector. On top of that, the Thunder extended Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe to multi-year contracts to maintain depth, youth, and continuity going into next season. I'm not ready to put them in the same tier as Boston just yet, but OKC has all the pieces in place to be a true title contender next year. Our next winner, the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, the big splash for Dallas was of course landing longtime Golden State Warrior Klay Thompson, but honestly, their other 2 signings are sneaky good pickups as well. Dallas had limited financial flexibility and draft capital, and they essentially traded Tim Hardaway Jr., Derrick Jones Jr., and Josh Green and turned that into Klay Thompson, Quentin Grimes, and Najee Marshall. Tim Hardaway was the 3rd highest paid player on the Mavs last year, and he basically fell completely out of the rotation come playoff time. Derrick Jones Jr. was essentially benched in the finals due to offensive consistency, and Josh Green was a hot-handed kind of player that saw his minutes fluctuate tremendously. Klay Thompson gives the Mavs a much-needed reliable third scorer and a three-point threat, which is huge considering the whole Mavs team outside of Luka shot under 25% from 3 during the finals against Boston. Yes, Klay is 34, and he's not the defensive stopper or the shot creator he used to be, but Dallas doesn't need him to do that. Teams aren't going to leave him wide open like they willingly did to PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr., and that's going to open up the floor so much for Luka Doncic. Najee Marshall may not be the point of attack or perimeter defender DJJ was, but he's still a plus defender with so much more offensive capabilities. And Quentin Grimes had an injury-riddled year last year in Detroit, but remember, this guy was once untouchable during his time with the Knicks, before losing his starting spot to Dante DiVincenzo. Also, Grimes finished his last couple of years in college at the University of Houston, a nationally recognized defensive powerhouse, before playing under another defensive-minded coach in Tom Thibodeau during his time with the Knicks. And speaking of the Knicks, they're my last big offseason winner so far. Sure, losing Isaiah Hartenstein hurts, and the Knicks had to give up a fortune to land Mikal Bridges, but shortly after OG Anunoby signed his massive contract, Jalen Brunson, the king of New York, signed a 4-year, $156 million contract. The reason the Knicks are seriously winners is because by Brunson doing this, and essentially taking a $113 million pay cut, the Knicks have so much flexibility in keeping this roster together and continuing to make moves to close the gap on the Celtics. On top of that, Mikal Bridges is reportedly likely to follow Brunson's lead when it's time for his extension. I gotta give it to these guys because in today's age of NBA players and the crazy salaries they demand, it's almost unheard of nowadays for players to take pay cuts like this. OG Anunoby better be paying for all of Brunson's meals for the next 3 years. All jokes aside, just like Minnesota built their team to take down Denver, the Knicks are building this roster up with as much length, playmaking, three-point shooting, and perimeter defense as possible to match the Boston Celtics roster. I'll be releasing my losers of the offseason video in a couple of days, so if you're wanting to check that out, be sure to hit the subscribe button and stick around. As you can see, I'm a new NBA content creator here, so any feedback or criticism would be greatly appreciated. Feel free to like the video and comment, and let me know what you guys think. Who are the biggest NBA offseason winners in your books so far? See you guys next time.